Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm here with something that's definitely different from the usual that you have seen. A lot of blue ocean there in front of you, and that is because we're going to be playing a little bit of the Age of Sail battle game, Black Seas, and this is by Warlord Games. So this first video is going to be pretty much what I usually do, quick kind of overview of the game, how it's played, the components, all that other good stuff. And then we may or may not get into the start of a little bit of a homebrew scenario that I've created here. Depending on how the filming goes, I may have another video up here in the corner showing kind of an overlay. I'm going to try a different filming technique, see how it works. So might just be this, and it might be something else. We'll just have to see how it comes out. All right, so obviously, as you guys can see laid out in front of you, this is a Age of Sail game set, during the wooden ships and cannons and sails and pirates and buccaneers and all that other really, really cool stuff. And I absolutely love Age of Sail stuff. I love the ships and the cannons and blowing each other apart and boarding parties and all that really, really cool stuff. It's kind of funny. I don't know a whole lot of the history, behind as much of that stuff, but the ships, just the idea of sailing across the ocean, and the only thing that's powering you is your sails, unless, some of these did have, little small boats they could row with to kind of help pull a ship. If you've watched any of Master and Commander, you've seen some of that stuff with Russell Crowe in it. But generally speaking, it was just wind power, and they were crossing the seas using that really, really just cool, mentality behind it. So this is a miniatures skirmish game. Now, what I'm going to have in front of you is mainly the starter box for it. Wifey was actually nice enough to get it for me. It was one of my Christmas gifts. I was also excited to get it because like I said, really love the Age of Sail stuff. I did get a few of the expansion boxes, of which this is one. This is a third-rate ship, so a lot more guns on it, a little bit bigger. As you can definitely tell, that's a brig there in front of you. Let me grab actually a few of the ships to show you guys. Let's see. This is some size comparisons of what you can see. All right, so starting over here and this isn't even the smallest, right? This is a brig. And a brig is the smallest that you're going to get in the starter box. Starter box has, 9 ships? Yeah, 9 ships that come in it, which kind of threw me off a little bit. I'm like, why don't they have even numbers? It has 6 brigs and 3 frigates that come in it. I guess they meant for you to do like one of the frigates as a merchant vessel or something along those lines. But yeah, either way. So you're going to have, like I said, 6 of these, and then the next size up that comes in the starter kit is this, which is the frigate. Now, this is painted as British, and I haven't quite finished these. I've mainly finished them. The thing is, I do not have the rigging on them. Which one did I put rigging on? Okay, let me show you guys. This little brig, see if I can get it in there. You see there's some tiny little strings tied onto this thing. The rule book actually goes into, and the box includes it, strangely enough. I mean, there's thread to actually tie up all the rigging if you really want to simulate it to that level. And honestly, my hands shake too much. I cannot simulate these ships to that level. So I tried it, made the effort, and then I gave up on it. I figured, screw it. I will have to just do it a different way. But they do have those plastic pieces for the net rigging there at the side. I forget what type of rigging that's called, but that actually glues on relatively easily. So between that and the paper sails, it comes out looking okay. And I'm going to show you guys the kit that you use to put these things together. This is one of them. This has a couple of the brigs, so you see they're relatively small. It's got the foremast and the mizzen mast, which is the rear one. That's something else I learned. So you've got mizzen, main, and the fore, right? If you've got a 3-mast ship. But these are the little kits to put them together. And I'm like hit and miss. I really like the plastic ones, right? So the ones that are included in the base game, they're done really well. The third rates, this one, did really well. I would have liked, honestly, to see them do the sails as just a plastic piece. Like, go ahead and have the sails molded on here instead of having you do it out of paper, because the paper, you've got to bend it and warp it to size, because obviously it's flat when you first get it, and you have to bend it around some type of round object and then try to curl the tips under. And I guess it just depends on how much of a modeler you want to be, right? It gives you a little more control because you can model it more to your dimensions. There are more sails that come with it, some that I just couldn't put on because I didn't have the rigging, the thread on there. So there's like some triangular pieces that go on the front. The ones, the square one back here at the back, I did have for most of them, but some of them, like this third rate, I think I put one of these plastic black pieces here, whatever this wooden pole would be called, a little bit too high, and it didn't fit there. So I was like, screw it, I'm just not gonna be able to fit it. And if it didn't fit, I didn't worry about putting it on. I found those were a little more difficult. The main ones, they went on easy. They come out looking real good. So it's easy to paint, easy to get that stuff on. You definitely want to make sure and do that. Damn, it's like everything in my office had to update. Like the printer was updating, making beeps in the background. I'm like, what the hell? I gotta do it right now. But yeah, I think the models could have been done a little bit better, right? And I don't know. It's the first time I've had to worry about trying to put on sails. I've never modeled Age of Sail ships before, so this was definitely a learning experience for me. I had fun painting them. I think they came out. Let's see if I can get it more in the light there. I think they came out relatively decent. Strangely enough, they've all got the same type of like paint scheme. The British are like a darker yellow. The French are this lighter yellow, and it's kind of hard. Like, all right, I got to find the right paint color. I think this is the L'Orient French ship that also I have not finished. You see, I haven't put the plastic pieces there on the side yet, but I did get the painting done. I think that one came out looking really good, and I like how it's got the name right there at the back. I kind of tried to put some wash on it so the name would stand out, because you can get these. I'm going to mention a little bit more on those kits here in a sec, but to finish up on these, I did find that painting these was actually easier to do it on the sprue versus putting the ship together. So some of them, when I first tried them, I clipped them out, glued it together like you would a normal model, plastic model from Warhammer 40,000 or something. And then when I was trying to paint it, I found that I'm fighting around the rigging, and I'm fighting around all this other stuff to try to get the paint on there. And obviously I didn't put the clear plastic pieces on, but the masks were already on. The only thing I hadn't put on was like the paper and the little clear plastic pieces. But even still with that, it was hard, and I was getting paint in places I didn't want to. And of course my hands shake, so I'm not the best painter to begin with. And I was like, you know what? It would be so much easier if I just do it on the sprue, right? So I would suggest doing it that way. If you're going to get some of these, get into this type of modeling, paint them on the sprue. It makes it so much easier. You can get to the insides, the pieces that are going to be harder. Like you see the inside here is painted blue, right? So I did blue for the French, and then the British got a red highlight there on the inside of their ships. It makes them real easy to tell apart. It's a lot easier to paint that on if you've got them right here on the sprues versus having the ship already done up. And just so you guys can see some of the bigger ones, this is a third-rate ship that is still on the sprue. You guys, I think you can see, yep, I have clipped it in a few places to make it to where there's less stuff in the way to paint. So I clipped those pieces out of the way and then went ahead and primed it. So when I come back, it'll be a lot easier to paint. I'm gonna finish these guys up later. I had enough ships for my purposes. Yeah, constantly adjusting my lighting, trying to get it just right. But I told you guys I would come back to this one. because I've got a couple of special named ships here. This is, like I said, the Orient, and this is HMS Victory. So I think this one is actually still in service with the British Navy. If I can get that to focus in, you can see it says Victory there on the back of it. Real cool model. Now, these are good and bad in different ways. The main piece of the ship, so the hull, right, just the hull on these is resin instead of the plastic that the rest of these ships are. I really like that. You know, resin's nice. These are very heavy because of it, so they feel very firm down there on the table. Really like that. What I hate with a passion, with the biggest passion ever, is that the rest of the pieces, so this, whatever this piece is called that sticks off the front of the ship, and then the masts themselves, the pieces that stick off the mast, pretty much everything that's not the paper sails is pewter. I hate pewter models. I hate them with a passion. I would never build another one if I could ever get away from it. Any little piece, the little ships that are on here, you guys can see down on it. Those are glued on there. The cannons are part of the resin, but this front bit all the way that attaches into it, the tip, that little woman there with her horn, whatever that is, all the masts. And if you notice, the masts are kind of bent just a little bit in different areas, and that's because they're all pewter. All that nasty silver metal that you can shave with a little razor blade to trim it down. And all of them, each one of these, I had to bend them back in place because they were all warped in the packages. I'm struggling not to break the pieces because when you're bending it, that metal's just getting weaker and weaker as you're trying to get it in the right place. It just was not a fun modeling experience. I would much rather have had all these pieces be plastic, molded plastic, just like these, with the resin bases, or just go all resin. I mean, these models are relatively expensive. I think this one was maybe 25 off of Amazon. I think this one was about 30 or so. So they're going to cost you anywhere between 25 and let's say 40, depending on where you get them. For that amount of money, I think you could go much better. They would be much better served having plastic pieces here instead of having these pewter pieces. I would figure that the pewter metal would be much more expensive than the plastic. The injection molded plastic is relatively cheap. Have those pieces cast. The only thing I can think of is that they would be making less of these than they would of these, because obviously you're going to need a lot more of these. These being named ships, you're only going to have one of them at most, and most people aren't going to buy all of them, right? Since this is more like an army builder type game, you'll build your French Navy or your English Navy, your American Navy, you know, whatever that you're having. So you're not going to get all the expensive ships for all the other factions, which I can understand that. That's fine. But definitely get away from the pewter. Maybe that's why, because they didn't have to cast as many, so they had to go with a different material. But I hate it. I don't know about you guys, but I wanted you to know, just in case you're like me and you hate working with pewter, that is something you're going to have to deal with. I mean, the models look good. I'm thinking about coming back and hitting this one with some more highlights. I think the La Orient here came out really well. The only problem is the paint scheme was so similar to the paint scheme for HMS Victory. I tried to change it up a little bit because they both had, you know, the black stripes with the red over the cannons, and I was like, I don't want to have the same color on them. So I tried to color the cannons differently. No, I think HMS Victory might touch up on. So that's your ships. And if you go with the base game, like I said, you're not going to have to deal with any of the resin or the pewter. That's all in the expansions, and you need to read the boxes of what you're ordering because, like I said, the third rates, those are all plastic kits. No resin, no pewter to worry about. It seems like it's just the bigger first rates name ships that you're going to have to worry about having those materials. And the resin is great. I mean, excellent material. Loved working with that. Easy to trim and get it set for the game board. Looked really good. Feels really good on the map. But honestly, if I had a choice, I'd prefer them all to be plastic. Lose out the resin. and just have the plastic models because it's just so easy to work with. I'm so used to dealing with that type of plastic. I'd rather use all that type of plastic because I know it's not going to be bent up. And if it is bent up, a little bit of warm water and a little pressure can generally fix it up, versus that pewter, I'm terrified I'm going to break it. All right, so other stuff that comes with your base game besides your ships. You're going to have these little pieces. They're different colored on each side, darker ocean and lighter ocean, depending on which side you're using on your mat. Speaking of mats, the play mat that comes with the base game, they do include one, which is nice. It's paper. This one that I'm using is a nylon ocean mat that I had. I think this looks a little bit nicer. It's a fair bit smaller than the paper one. Paper one that comes with it is perfectly serviceable. It is 3 feet by 4 feet, I believe. This one's a 3 by 3, and just it all depends on how big of a game you want to have. I'm having a small game that I'm going to show you guys here. It's 3 French ships versus 1 English ship. I've got a third rate that's going to take on a couple of brigs and a frigate. Almost even on points. I think this one's 280 points and they're like 300 or 310 points. So they've got a little bit of an advantage, but he can blow away those brigs pretty quickly. So yeah, I figured that will probably work out. We'll try it out. So you're going to have the paper mat. Looks fine, but nylon so much better. It's flat, it's not folded, you don't have the creases, all that good stuff, right? I mean, you know what it is if you've got the nylon versus the others. Also, for each one of your ships, you're going to have a card, and that's going to be included with the expansions, with the base games. These are, and they're nice materials too, nice feeling cards that designate the ship and its hull points. That's what these little red pieces are that are clipped on, kind of clipped on because they're paper and they don't hold that well. And it tells you the stats of your ship. You see, these are for the brigs, those small French ones that we're going to be showing there here soon. And it tells you how many guns you have in each side of your ship, and if you have any in the front or the bow or the stern rather. So the brig has 2 heavy cannons on each side. And the 2 just means, hey, that's how many dice you roll. Real simple. I really enjoy the system for this game. Obviously, it's not as realistic, right? I think this is just for fun, beer and pretzels, Age of Sail type game that looks good on the board. Sail symbol here on the side shows you how fast your knots are. That's basically how many inches you move per movement that you make. And the level of your sails determines how many moves that you're going to make. That is what these little paper pieces are for, because you're going to keep this underneath your ship. You see there at the top, it says full sails, battle sails, and light sails. So this is basically the wake that your ship is putting off. So when your ship is set up like this, and you've got a long wake behind it, that means you're going fast and you're at full sails. And if you're a little bit farther back on it, then you're at battle sails, midway, which is what they're modeled at. And then light sails there at the back, and then you just be on it if you're anchored. Anchored would be stopped. So real easy way to keep track of how fast all the ships are going. You're going to have that little piece of paper. You can easily look around and see how fast each of the ships are going. And besides the cards, there are a handful of tokens that come with it, little activation tokens to keep track. And then over here to the side, I have set out the tokens that signify the different types of shot you can make, like hot, chain, grape shot, double shot, and then there are critical hits that can be made against your ship. So there are tokens to help designate, like, hey, your ship's taking a critical hit. We'll keep that next to it. No different, your focus and evade tokens, all that good stuff. Your critical hit tokens to know they've taken some damage. Also included is some cardboard token pieces that you see that I've got the big island that comes with it here in the center. I'm using that as part of the play area. And then there's a bunch of these little pieces that you can kind of put around the edge of the map to kind of signify that there's an island over here, just like a don't ram this island type terrain. I've got a few of those laid around. And then way back there, there's actually a harbor piece that you see I've got the enemy frigate put up against like he's docked. So my scenario that I'm going with on this is the French had stopped for some supplies. They had a couple of brigs parked here. They're, picking up some supplies off the island. One of the French frigates back over there on a different island getting some supplies and whatnot. And an English third rate was able to sneak up on them and go after them. And just in case for those of you who are wondering, because this is something I didn't know, is during this time period, it was generally frowned upon for heavier ships, higher class ships, third rate to fire down on a frigate or a brig. There is even an optional rule in the game for that you'd have to make a skill test. And if you failed it, your crew's not firing on it. I'm not going to be worrying about that because it would put him at a severe disadvantage if he had to take a test every time to fire at his opponents. But they even have that in the game, which I like. And of course they have a collection of dice. I like the fact that they even included this goofy looking D3 for when you need to make D3 rolls. I'll probably just use a D6 since that thing looks a little weird, but it is nice to have it. They have a bunch of D10s that come in it, white, red, and black to help signify the different types of cannons, and then a couple of cute, dainty little D6s that come with the game. And just to show you guys, I will grab this third rate as the example. This is the English ship that's going, and you see it has cannons front and back and all around and different types of cannons. So if we're looking at this row here on the side, the port side, it's got 3 heavy cannons, 2 light cannons, and 2 carronades. So it has a lot of different types of shots that it can make. And the cool part is you can make a shot from each one of the 4 quadrants. So you can shoot left, right, front, and back during the same turn, all at different targets if you want to. Now, some penalties do come into play if you're making that many shots, but you have the option. Also shows on the card that this is size L, large, and his health, I forgot to mention on the other one, is in that steering wheel symbol. Oh, damn, I can't remember the name of it. What do you call that? Hell, we'll go with steering wheel for now until I remember, but 74. So that 74 and the number right below it, 25, is the strike colors, because obviously during this time period, they generally didn't fight until their ship sank. They would fight until a certain time. After they'd taken so much damage, they would surrender and they would pull their colors. Once you hit that much hull left, whatever that number is, then you have to start making skill tests, and you can potentially fail, and then you're going to have to strike your colors and your ship will just stop for the remainder of the match. So it's going to be this one versus the 2 brigs that I pointed out, and then this is the frigate. And the frigate in this can be used a couple of different ways. You see, this is a 5th rate frigate versus the 3rd rate gunship that's up there, ship of the line. But these frigates can also be used as, instead of a medium-sized fighting ship, it can be a large-size merchant-type vessel. Fewer guns on it, slower turning radius. It has a yellow instead of a red, goes a little bit slower. So I like how they have cards included so you can use them in multiple different ways. All right, and just show you a couple other things that are included. We've got our quick reference sheet, and this is something I scanned and printed out. It was just in the back of the rulebook, which the rulebook is very nice for the cost of this game. I mean, look at that, nice thick book, a lot of good pictures in it showing all the ships painted up and what they can look like. I really do like that. But at the back of the rulebook, they've got their quick reference sheet. I would have liked to have maybe either seen that on the back of the rule book or a separate sheet in and of itself, because it's much easier to keep track of this information here versus having to have this big heavy book out. And it was a slight little fail on their part for quality of life, but nothing that can't be fixed relatively simply. And this is pretty much all the rules you need to know. Right here, one sheet. That's why I have gotten a kick out of this game, is that you don't need to know a hell of a lot. Now, like I said, this isn't simulating Age of Sail down to the last drop and how many rations of grog they have and this sail and that rigging and whatever. This is meant just to be a fun miniature skirmish game, right? Keep that in mind when you're going at it. There are optional rules. For sailing, you can go with an easier version or a harder version, just depending on how realistic that you want it. I like how they kind of leave that to the player. For the most part, I'm including most of the optional rules, with the exception of the harder sailing. I'm going with the easier sailing since I'm controlling all the ships myself. And then there was something else I forget that I'm not including, but like the ability to have fires and extra different types of shot and all that good stuff, definitely having in the game. And one last thing to show you that they do not include that I have replaced with other pieces. There is a weather gauge to tell you which direction the wind is going to be coming from. And then a angle marker. This is for your ships to help them when they're making a turn. Some have a better turning radius, a red turning radius, which means they can make sharper turns, or a yellow turning radius, which means they can't. And this can also be used to put at like the front of your ship to help determine firing arcs, which nice that it serves dual purpose there. And it has a small little ruler for movement. These I got from Etsy. I think I ordered it for like 15 bucks, which was a nice little deal on these because they're very nice wooden pieces for the game versus the cheaper cardboard version that comes with it. So if you are interested in the game and you want the nicer wooden version, definitely check out the Etsy shop and see what you can find on there. I will put a link to the one that I ordered if I find it again. All right, so since I'm running a little low on time, I'm going to do a quick overview of how we're going to play, how the game itself is played, and then we will get started on the next video with the actual scenario, which again is going to be who survives, the third rate or the two brigs and the frigate. Basically, this larger, heavier ship caught them with their pants down, and he comes sailing up on them, and he's going to try to take them out. He's coming in from this corner, and he's going to be sailing up this way. And I'm starting with the wind just pointing north, just trying to go for something easy. All right, so one of the first things that you're going to do each turn is you're going to do your weather, right? And you're going to see if anything changes. And it can be something to like the calm, the weather's just calm, nothing's changing, or no, wind directions first, and then your weather conditions down here. But for your weather changing, it can increase the speed of your ships, slow the speed of your ships. More often than not, when you do your 2d6 roll, there's not going to be a change, but it can change the direction that the wind's blowing. So if I'm starting at north, it could end up going one direction in either way. And then just depending on what you roll, your wind could end up swinging all the way around if you get really bad luck. Something you have to keep track of. But they've got a neat way that they go about activating ships in this game, and it's your closeness to like your weather gauge. So let's say all our ships are out like this, right? We've got one down here, we got a couple here, and then one way up there. The way it's going to work is since the wind's coming in from this way, going up, then imagine a line all the way across from where the wind starts. So it doesn't matter which of the 8 cardinal directions. You've got each table edge, so here, there, there, and there, and then the corners that it can come in from, all right? Whichever direction it's blowing from, that's where you're going to start, and imagine a line going straight across the board in whatever direction it is until it hits a ship. That's the ship that activates. So in our scenario where we're at right now, the third rate would activate first, and then whichever one of these is closer, they're about the same. Let's move them up a little bit. If it were like this one would activate first, then that one, and then the frigate way there in the back would activate because he's farthest back, obviously. And actually, I'm probably going to tilt him just a little bit so he's going to be angled and not directly into the wind because he'd start off tacking, and that's not good. And I don't want him to take damage right there at the start just because I pointed him in the wrong direction. So I'll figure out something on that one. But yeah, that's how it's going to work. Whoever's closest to the origination of the wind is going to be the one that goes. So it could be all of your ships. It could be all of your enemy ships. It just depends on where the wind's coming from. It could be back and forth. You just have to keep track of it. I would use, if it's really like something down to the wire, a laser pointer to kind of draw your line and then move it across, kind of see which ship it's hitting first. When you're activating your ship, your speed is going to depend on whatever sales, again, that you're at. And the easiest way to think about it is 3, 2, 1, 0, right? So full sales makes 3, battle sales makes 2, light sales makes 1, and then if you're anchored, you're going to make 0. So if we were at battle sales, we would make 2 moves. And for us, we know this guy's speed is 4 knots. So you would measure from the front in whatever direction he was heading. I'll tilt this down a little bit. And it says measure, from the front of the vessel. I think a good idea is to like pick a good spot. Like this little line right here is a good spot to measure to. And then you're just going to push him forward. You're 4 inches right along, just like that. And then keep this to the side until you're done making your moves. But once you've made your first move, you can make a turn. All right. So let's say he wanted to turn at this point. You're going to look what type of radius he has. He has red designated by this red arrow here at the back. The red gets the 45, yellow gets the 30. So 45, obviously they can make bigger turns. And you just line it up back here at the back of the ship, and you can turn up until you hit the edge of it in whatever direction you want to go. All right. So let's say he wanted to turn that way. All right. Well, he's made his turn and he's doing 2 moves. So he could move again, another 4 inches, boom, just like that. And then when he finished, if he wanted to turn again, he could turn again or commence firing. Now, one of the things that I am including in this game, one of the optional rules is fire as she goes, which basically means that, let's say this guy was here, as such, and we just made that 4-inch move, right? So we were back here and then we moved up. Well, your firing arcs for your ships are an angle coming out from the back, angle coming out from the front, and then straight along the sides. So just like this, imagine a line drawn from the front of the ship and the back of the ship all the way. Anything within that is in your arc of fire. Well, firing as she goes means you can choose to take your shot not at the stop of a turn or somewhere like that. You could fire here. You just have to mark where you're going to be ending up. So you know that you're taking your shot here to maximize your damage because you're tearing them up from the stern, but the end of your move is going to put you in this location, all right? Basically, I think that's a little more thematic than saying, hey, he's coming around, he's moving up here, and he gets to here, and then he's going to do his shooting. Fire here. When you were in the best position, you could do the most damage, but enemies can do it to you too. Now, when you are taking your shots, there's a bunch of modifiers that can come into play, things like range, whether or not it's over 10 inches away. I would definitely recommend having a tape measure nearby that you can use, because you are going to have some, like your heavy cannons, can fire up to 20 inches away. And that's pretty far. You see, for the first and second gun position you fire, no modifier, but if you fire all your gun positions, you're going to start getting a lot of modifiers onto it. The experience of your crew, if you're shooting at a vessel at full sails or it's anchored, how fast they're moving, the size of the vessel, whether you're aiming high, so you're trying to take out their rigging and their mast, all the other good stuff, modifiers for all of this. And it's really easy to understand because it even has it listed right here at the top. Your base to hit is a 5 or less on a D10. So before any of these modifiers come into play, you're rolling a D10, and if it's 5 or under, you hit. Just that simple. Now, you have to account for your modifiers, and then the damage you do is based on what type of cannon is firing. 2 damage for heavy cannon, 1 damage for light cannon, 3 damage for carronade, and then if you've got something with mortars on it, you get 1d6. None of my ships in this scenario are going to have mortars, so we're not going to have to worry about that, but the damage here can also be doubled and tripled depending on if you're getting raking and stern shots. That's when you're crossing the T and doing that stuff, but we'll get into that specifically when we're playing. So remember, looking at it, if we were to be taking this shot here, we'll be rolling a fair amount of dice. 3 for the heavy, 2 for our light, and 2 for our carronades. You have to make sure that they're all in range, the carronade being the shortest at 8 inches. So you measure it, okay, we've got them in range, and then you would gather up your dice for each one of them. That's why they suggest you using different colored dice. That way you can tell easily and you can roll it all at once to see what type of hit you got. Then afterwards, all you have to do is annotate on your little thing with these little paper pieces that I don't much care for. I hate it when they're little paper clips like this. I would rather it be something else. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to switch these to dice or something to keep track of it, because these are a little bit harder, especially when you're one-handed filming. But little Brig here's got 20 health. He strikes his colors at 7 health remaining for his hull. Roll our dice, see what kind of damage we do, and that is it. That's pretty much the game. So after you complete one ship that's at whatever weather gauge, you're going to keep on doing the others until you finished out the round and then reset for the next turn. The cool part, though, is they did include little bits of cotton that you can take and put next to your ship to kind of simulate the smoke from firing all your cannons at each other. I just love that. So that's the way that you play this game, to remember that you fired that side. So if you fired both sides, you put a little cotton at each side. Like, oh, there we go. We fired from both sides. I'm going to try to roll that, see if I can get a little better. I did get some cotton balls to unroll them, see if it works a little better than the cotton they included. And they included a little bit of black and then a little bit of red as well to help signify if you've got a fire on board. So yeah, I definitely get a kick out of just the little minutia that they've included with this game. Stuff like cotton to show off the damage that you've done, the shots that you're taking, a little bit of cotton, red cotton to signify the fire. They really did kind of go out of their way to make it look good on the table while having a simplistic set of rules that are easy to pick up and play. Honestly, the rule book is not hard to understand. Nice big print. I read through it in well under an hour and understood the game really well. And it's up to you on what optional rules you want to include. So how much more realistic you want to go with it. Like I said, it's not full on like a simulation or anything like that. This is for fun. This is X-Wing set in the Age of Sail with actually less rules to worry about than X-Wing by far. All right, but you guys stay tuned. Let me know what other stuff you want to see as far as this game's concerned. We're going to pick up with the start of the third rate, making his little move onto the board. I'm probably going to do a little battle sails as he's coming in and shooting on. See if he can take out these 2 brigs before that frigate can join in, because if the 3 of them can pin him down and shoot him up, well, then he might lose, because they can put a whole lot of hurt on him. But he has the biggest guns and the most amount of them. All right, you guys stay tuned. I will be back with the next episode. Y'all take care.